The Chief Innovation Officer at Swift just took a shot at XRP. And in this video, I want to talk about how bad this is for XRP moving forward, and if this means that Swift will not be using XRP like a lot of people had hoped for. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange upload down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content. So let's jump right into the video and talk about what the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift just said about XRP, because there's a lot of people worried about what this means for the future of XRP. Guys, this is going to be super important to upgrading your knowledge about how this entire cryptocurrency system works. So let's take a look at what was said. Now, this was on LinkedIn, funny enough. I didn't know people still use LinkedIn, but here we go. Someone put out a post that said this: Ripple's XRP stands alone as the blockchain that's been battle-hardened by nearly 5 years of intense regulatory scrutiny, proving its resilience like no other. For over a decade, Ripple has been vocal about prioritizing compliance, trust, and interoperability, working hand-in-hand with global regulators to meet stringent standards while driving innovation in cross-border payments. Now, this was just a person posting this. Looks like he's at Shark Force. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but obviously I agree with everything he says there. But the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift actually chimed in. He said, surviving lawsuits isn't resilience. Neutral shared governance is. Institutions don't want to live on a competitor's rails. And compliance isn't about one company convincing regulators it should be allowed to operate. It's about an entire industry agreeing on shared standards that no single balance sheet controls. Now, this is very interesting. Clearly, he is taking a shot at Ripple and XRP here, but the funny thing is, he almost gets it entirely wrong and instead proves why so many people are pro Ripple and XRP. Let's break down exactly what he gets wrong. He says surviving lawsuits isn't resilience. Well, I guess I can, it's a certain form of resilience, but let's move past that. He said neutral shared governance is. Now, let's think about what neutral shared governance is. Neutral shared governance is not the Swift network, which is a centralized piece of software that Swift has complete control over. It's also not the intrabank settlement system that Swift uses to move money, which is mostly controlled by Citibank and JP Morgan. These are the definition of centralized controlled settlement systems. He makes this post making it sound like that's not what Swift is, but that's exactly what Swift is. It's a centralized piece of software controlled by Swift where Swift makes the rules and everyone relies on what Swift decides to do. It's totally centralized. It's not neutral. It's not decentralized. It's completely controlled and centralized governments. He says institutions don't want to live on a competitor's rails. That's what institutions are living on right now using the Swift network. The XRP ledger is neutral, decentralized settlement rails. No one owns the rails. Ripple doesn't own the rails, and neither do the institutions using it. It's a neutral platform that anyone can come in and use based off of their own needs. So the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift gets this severely wrong right off the bat. He completely misunderstands his own product, let alone the XRP ledger. The reason why the XRP ledger is so enticing is because there is no king. There's no centralized ruler. There's no single person that makes the rules and takes control of the network. That's exactly what Swift is. During the Russia-Ukraine massive event, Swift essentially started freezing assets owned by Russia. That's because Swift has a centralized king. They have someone who makes the rules. They can do whatever they want. And it's so interesting to me that he tries to turn this against Ripple and XRP, when in reality, it is the biggest problem with the Swift network. He also goes on to say that the entire industry agreeing on a shared set of standards with no single balance sheet, that once again is a shot at Swift, not XRP. There is no balance sheet for XRP. It's neutral, decentralized settlement code. You can work with Ripple. You don't have to work with Ripple. You can just take advantage of the XRP ledger. It's a decentralized, neutral piece of settlement software, completely independent of any institution or any company. And that is what he seems to completely misunderstand here. He has no idea how the XRP ledger works. And instead, he tries to twist it into making Swift seem something like it's not. So I wanted to point that out because, look, maybe he's not a fan of Ripple and XRP. It doesn't seem like he is. But the important thing to realize is he doesn't really know what he's talking about. And it actually goes deeper than what he says right here. If you take a look at one of Ripple's newest partners, which is Thunes, Thunes is a cross-border payments company, and they lay out a very good diagram of how this entire thing works. What you'll see is Thunes, who really is more of a Swift competitor than Ripple, actually sits at the connector level. There's the application level of payments, that's like your Venmos and the things people log on to. Then there's the connector layer, people like Thunes and Swift who send messages. And then there's the actual network layer, or where the infrastructure for moving the money is actually held. This is where Ripple and XRP sit. They sit at the network layer or the infrastructure layer. This is what the chief innovation officer at Swift is completely misunderstanding. The XRP ledger isn't replacing what Thunes or Swift are doing. They're just providing new rails for the money to flow. It's not about trusting a connector. It's not about trusting a centralized counterparty. It's not about working with a centralized counterparty. It's about how the money actually moves. And for the CIO of Swift to misunderstand that shows that not only does he fail to see why the XRP ledger is better than the outdated settlement system, but he also fails to understand that it's not even necessarily competition for what Swift is doing. Swift can continue to have their centralized way of messaging different institutions and letting them know who owes what. But that money still needs to move eventually. It still needs to settle. It still needs to go to some form of settlement in order for the transaction to be done. And the truth of the matter is XRP clearly sits below that in being a form of rails that companies like Thunes and Swift can use to run their businesses. So it's not so much of, oh, Swift is going to be completely replaced. No, it's that, in my opinion, it's very likely that Swift's messages, right, will continue to run. But the actual value will settle on a more efficient, faster, and space-age technology, which would be the XRP ledger. The biggest thing that I think everyone needs to take away from this is that, yes, we are experts in the cryptocurrency industry and how Ripple and XRP really function. But a lot of people are still severely behind. Nothing I read from the chief innovation officer at Swift there made me think, oh, this is someone who knows what he's talking about, or oh, this is a bearish case for XRP, or oh, this is some kind of problem. No, it just let me know that Swift is even further behind than I would have ever thought. In my opinion, he doesn't even understand what XRP is looking to do. He doesn't understand at all where Ripple fits into the equation. Instead, he probably understands what he's doing and has his eyes completely shut to these new emerging systems. At the end of the day, one thing should be more clear than ever before. Swift does not have the technology to compete with what XRP is doing. They can't even understand it. And when we go into the next generation financial system, it's not going to matter who won before. In the same exact way that every industry gets disrupted eventually by a high-tech, better competitors. What Ripple is providing with the XRP ledger is a better solution. And institutions are going to move that to that solution whether Swift likes it or not. The fact that the chief innovation officer at Swift thinks that what they are doing in a centralized way is more decentralized than a neutral decentralized blockchain shows that he has a lack of understanding about what this technology even is. And to add on top of that, he certainly doesn't understand where this technology actually fits in the payment stack. Swift is a connector. They're not a settlement system. And settlement systems are where all the value flows. What the XRP ledger is doing is creating an actual neutral, decentralized settlement platform. A settlement platform that Swift can use completely irrespective of anything Ripple wants. But if Swift wanted to shut Ripple off of their network, they could do it in the snap of a finger. So it's really important to understand that this future financial system is being built out in front of us. And the best technology is going to be the technology that wins over the long run. The fact that the CIO of Swift feels threatened enough to put his misinformed opinion on LinkedIn and talk about how all of these different things that he completely gets wrong are issues with XRP just shows that Ripple's products are clearly really getting under his skin. And in my opinion, it's more of a complaint about his own lack of understanding or his own lack of confidence in his own product set than really anything else. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.